and the public do not recognize like Samia Suluhu Hassan as the leader right now. So the entire country is in a vacuum. So if you want to talk about the future, it is about the reforms for a fresh election that Tanzanians can have an opportunity to elect their leaders.
There are stories that don't simply appear in the news. They crash into your senses, grip your breath and refuse to let go. Tanzania's story after the election is one of those moments. A shaky video appears online. You hear feet pounding against the earth, a woman running, a single crack of a rifle slices the air, and then a quiet, pained whisper from someone filming nearby. Oh my God, this is our Tanzania. Just like that, the image of a peaceful, respectful, calm nation fractures. Not slowly, but in one instant. Because what happened after that election wasn't politics. It wasn't protest. It wasn't instability. It was something darker, something that felt like the country was turning against its own people. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So the question that echoes through homes, streets, and hearts is simple. How did Tanzania reach this breaking point? Let's unfold this story. Every nation has turning points, quiet shifts when people suddenly realize things are no longer the same. For Tanzania, that moment came the night election results were announced. But it wasn't loud. It wasn't celebratory. It wasn't even chaotic. It was stillness. A cold, uncanny stillness that didn't belong to this country. A silence that felt heavy, unnatural, like something was waiting to break. Small groups stepped outside, gathering under streetlights and corners, not shouting, not throwing stones, not even debating, just murmuring, confused, trying to understand how an election outcome could feel predetermined before votes were even counted. Their questions weren't rebellious. They were human. They were normal. But that normalcy lasted only minutes, because the silence didn't end with an announcement, or a police warning, or negotiations. It ended with gunfire, sharp, sudden, final, gunshots that didn't sound like warnings. They sounded like decisions. People froze, others ran, and for the first time in years, Tanzanians realized they were hearing a sound that did not belong to their election week, a sound that declared a shift in the nation's soul. Someone began recording, not for attention, not for views, but because instinct shouted that the world needed to see this moment. And from behind the camera came a trembling whisper. Oh my God, this is our Tanzania. Those words pierced harder than the bullets. They weren't about politics. They were about identity, about the shattering truth that the country people believed was safe and peaceful was now showing a darker face, one they hoped never existed. What followed next made it clear. This was not a misunderstanding, not an accident, not confusion. It was prepared. When the first bullet was fired, some people convinced themselves it might be a warning shot. But that illusion shattered seconds later. Because the first person who fell wasn't armed, wasn't attacking, wasn't confronting anyone. She was simply running away. A woman, seen in multiple clips, carrying a small stick and a stone, not as weapons, but out of pure instinct. She didn't look back. She wasn't charging. She was trying to escape. And then suddenly, she collapsed. Not slowly, not uncertainly. She dropped the way someone drops when a bullet is carefully aimed. Later, her family revealed the heartbreak no one expected. She was 3 months pregnant, a mother of 2, trying only to reach home. An audio forensic analyst later confirmed something chilling. The shot came from around 100 meters away. That distance matters, because you do not hit a running woman from 100 meters by mistake. You choose your target. You steady your weapon. You decide to pull the trigger. Minutes later, another body dropped. A young man in a red shirt, unarmed, standing far away. He fell instantly, a bullet striking his head. Blood spread across the asphalt, witnessed by horrified onlookers who whispered in disbelief, "This is Tanzania. How is this happening?" Those whispers captured something. No headline ever could, the emotional breaking point of a nation watching its identity crumble. There comes a stage when truth no longer relies on stories. It begins to show itself physically. In Tanzania, that moment arrived when hospitals ran out of space for the dead. Doctors, exhausted, overwhelmed, and heartbroken, spoke quietly, not for attention, but because what they witnessed was too enormous to contain. One doctor described it plainly. The morgue filled. After that, we placed bodies outside. No dramatics, no exaggeration, just the simple, devastating truth. Bodies of mostly young men, many with bullet wounds to the head, chest, abdomen, clothes torn, blood dried, faces frozen. And then came the footage. Not one video, dozens. Bodies lying in corridors, bodies on hospital floors, bodies stacked in rooms meant for the living, not the dead. The Ministry of Health denied everything. called the footage fake, but the denial shattered when families recognized faces. A sister spotted her own brother lying among the dead, a young man who had vanished, never logged or recorded by authorities. Other families reported the same story. Loved ones disappeared. Their bodies never reached hospitals. No records, no explanations, just absence. The kind of absence that terrifies more than violence. Because if morgues are full and families are still searching, where were the missing? Human rights groups estimated hundreds injured, hundreds dead, numbers far beyond the government's silence. And so the question sharpened. If these victims didn't end up in hospitals, where were they taken? Suspicion became reality when reports began emerging from neighborhoods across Tanzania, white unmarked pickup trucks moving at night. They weren't speeding. They weren't panicked. They moved deliberately, silently, along back roads. Men in plain clothes stepped out, armed, trained, coordinated, drone. Footage later confirmed these accounts. Rifle-carrying individuals pursued fleeing civilians into alleys and courtyards, moving in sync with uniformed officers. This was no rogue operation. It was coordination. As videos spread, missing person cases grew more alarming. Some families eventually discovered the bodies of loved ones. Others never did. A disturbing pattern emerged. Someone was shot. Witnesses saw a body taken away. But afterward, there was no record. No morgue, no paperwork, no trace. Whispers began around a single location, Kunduchi Kondo Cemetery, on the outskirts of Dar es Salaam. At first, rumors, then satellite imagery confirmed them. High-resolution satellite images from November 9th and 15 revealed large, freshly disturbed sections of earth in a previously unused part of the cemetery. Sentinel-2 data pinpointed the digging to November 2 to 5, the exact period when morgues were overflowing, and families were reporting missing relatives. Ground footage corroborated uneven soil, exposed roots, strips of cloth half buried, freshly turned earth stretching across wide sections. These were not normal burials. They were hurried, unannounced, unrecorded. Witnesses described late-night truck arrivals, muffled digging, groups of men working quickly, then disappearing without explanation. The government offered no comment, no acknowledgement, no denial, just silence. Suspicion had become certainty. When bodies vanish, trucks move at night, and the earth itself shows evidence of mass burials. Denial is no longer credible. The nation was forced to confront a grim truth. What happens when the truth is buried, literally, while those responsible remain silent? As video circulated, morgues overflowed, and cemetery footage surfaced. Tanzania faced a crisis, not political, but deeply emotional. For generations, the country was seen as calm, predictable, the peaceful heart of East Africa. Then the narrative shattered. Unarmed civilians shot, bodies stacked in hospitals, young men dragged into trucks, satellite images hinting at mass graves. Families searching for loved ones endured a unique pain. They weren't debating politics. They were calling numbers that never answered, walking through hospital corridors with no information, begging for acknowledgement that never came. Government silence magnified the suffering. Silence in such moments becomes its own violence. Young Tanzanians felt the shock most acutely. They had grown up believing their nation was different, that political violence belonged elsewhere. Now the guns pointed inward, and a question took hold. What does citizenship mean when your own state treats you as a threat? Trust is fragile. Once broken, it cannot be restored through speeches or committees, only through honesty, transparency, accountability. But these were absent. A commission blamed protesters for being paid, deflecting responsibility rather than confronting the violence. Communities whispered of unmarked graves, nighttime burials, missing relatives. Life continued under a heavy, unrelenting cloud. The young generation, recording and sharing the evidence, became the nation's witnesses. Their memory will endure, shaping Tanzania's future. This painful, unresolved moment will influence Tanzania for years. How the nation chooses, truth or denial, will define more than politics. It will shape identity, belonging, and the bond between people in their country. A nation can endure conflict and hardship, but it cannot survive if it refuses to confront its own wounds. The final question remains: how does a country rebuild when it refuses to name the wounds it carries?